This game from the well-known Castlevania series is the third and final installment released on the Game Boy. Among fans of the series, the game is somewhat controversial. Some celebrate it while others don't warm up to it. In this review, I approach the game as someone with only surface-level knowledge of the series. Therefore, I will examine the game on its own merits and refrain from making extensive comparisons to the other parts. So much for my approach, but let's take a closer look together. What does Castlevania Legends for the Game Boy have to offer today? The game was developed by Casey and published by Konami much later in 1998 for us in the USA. Japan got the game a year earlier. And there it has a different, very long name that I won't even attempt to pronounce correctly. The first surprise awaits you as soon as you start the game. You play as Sonia Belmont, a female protagonist. This is rather unusual for the series at this point in time, but apart from the appearance, it doesn't affect the gameplay. Your weapon, however, is naturally the favorite weapon of the Belmonts, the whip. You can also upgrade it in 3 stages by collecting upgrades. In the last stage, it even shoots balls and becomes a ranged weapon. Additionally, there's a burning mode and soul weapons. You can activate the former once per life, granting you invincibility for a certain period, similar to the star in Super Mario. However, as mentioned, you can only use it once per life, so you should always be careful when and where you use it. You obtain the soul weapons by defeating the boss enemies. These have different abilities such as freezing enemies and so on. Using these abilities always requires a certain number of hearts. You collect these in the classic way by destroying candles. The more powerful the ability, the more it costs to use it, logically. Apart from hearts, there are also the Castlevania standards to collect. Extra lives, life energy, holy water, and so on. Equipped in this way, you fight your way through a total of 6 generously designed levels. You start at the bottom of the castle, fighting your way up to the clock tower to face Dracula himself. But he certainly doesn't make it easy for you, and all sorts of thematically fitting enemies await you. However, they have a slightly annoying habit. They respawn as soon as you leave the screen. At the end of each level, you'll encounter a boss as mentioned earlier. Occasionally, there are also branching paths. If you're thinking, cool, different ways to proceed, you'll be disappointed. The choice is unfortunately only superficial. One path simply continues, and on the other you can only collect more goodies. The general gameplay feeling is typically Castlevania, somewhat slower paced. But that doesn't mean the game is difficult. Compared to other action platformers, it lacks some speed. However, the protagonist has a great advantage compared to her male counterparts. You can change direction in mid-jump. While this may not sound like a big deal, it does occasionally make jumping passages easier. If you find the normal difficulty level too tough, I have good news for you. There's a light mode. This makes your life a bit easier. For example, you start with a fully upgraded whip. Your progress is saved using passwords. The graphics look alright, don't get me wrong. They look good, but considering the release date, I would have expected a bit more. At least there are no slowdowns. The expected sound is delivered as well, although the Castlevania series is generally known for higher quality in this aspect. However, that doesn't mean it's bad either. So what does Castlevania Legends for the Game Boy offer today? As I mentioned before, I won't make extensive comparisons with the other titles in this review. I did enjoy the game. The atmosphere is just right and the gameplay fits well. It's an above average game, but somehow it lacks that certain something for me. If it had been a very early Game Boy game, I would have praised it. But considering the release year, there could have been more. However, if you're in the mood for a very good action platformer, you can go for it